Fuck waiting for you to get it on your own. Ask them to give it to you. Knock, knock, open up the door. It's real with the non-stop pop of stainless steel.
I found all these songs that are like redone in different eras of current music, and I can't lie, they've been my favorite music lately. What's up, everybody? Thank you for being patient. Today is going to be different because we've been talking about trauma, and I need a little bit more of a lighthearted stream with you guys because too much downs, man. Too many downs, and I'm not saying that there's not real stuff going on, but what it is. We in the stew, baby. We in the stew. Let's get to a very important conversation, though. And as you know, we're going to continue to update you on anything that's going on. We're also going to be watching Corey Richens' trial soon. So we're going to be tapping into some long days. I know jury selection starts today. We're not going to really watch jury selection. We'll watch when the trial actually starts. And, that whole situation is something we'll get into a little bit later on. But today, I wanted to focus on this because it has been a subject that has been very prevalent to what we've been talking about when it comes to people's cases, when it comes to ourselves, and understanding ourselves a little bit better. And trauma really does create new neural pathways and really starts to get us to look a certain way. And so I really want to get into that today. And we're going to get to it. So it is so good to see you guys. Let's get to it. Wow, that's not what I wanted. Here it is. So I've been going through a bunch of different articles, just reading in general. I will tell you, I want to kind of go through the three main things that I think happen when you are traumatized. Okay. And for me, one is physical, one is mental, and one is spiritual. Okay. And, this is something my uncle, Adam, used to talk about all the time. I have to be very clear. It was not Alex. But one of the things I wanted to, we used to talk about what's important in your life, which is mental, physical, spiritual. Well, when it comes to trauma, this is the same thing. So mentally, when you're really going through trauma and experiencing a lot, what can happen is it can start to physically get to you. And, what I mean by that is, like, for me, I don't want to be too, too graphic. But for me, I was actually like having blood come out of me when I went to the bathroom for no reason, by the way, when I was going through trauma. There was a lot of physical things like not sleeping correctly, night terrors. And then on top of that, just the physical holding your body. So the muscle tightness, people kind of skip over like how much your muscle, like how much you react. So I remember one time I was laying down and, this is height of trauma. And I realized that I was just always in this clinch, and I still find myself doing this, but not as much. But I was just kind of in this clinch all the time. And I remember like sitting there and just kind of saying, relax. And my shoulders dropped for the first time. And I remember that moment because I think I just walked around in this like clenched position, this feeling of like everything hurts all the time. And so I physically was rolled forward and tight all the time, which obviously can cause a lot more physical issues when it comes to just your well-being of your everyday. So when we talk about this stuff, it's to really make it as palatable as possible for us as people and try to be able to find better ways for us to, kind of work through all this stuff. So abstractly, the brain areas implicated in the stress response includes the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. Now, we need to talk about those positions because the prefrontal cortex is your survival. I remember when I had one of those, like, I forgot exactly what they're called. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they were basically where you put you do the brain scans. And in mine, for when I first started doing therapy, this was back in 23, my prefrontal cortex was lit up to like the max. And that is where you are in fight or flight, and where basically when you're in that state, when your prefrontal cortex is activated, nothing else is rational because you are in a state of survival. And so you don't think normal. You forget what you're doing. You forget why you went to the, yes, EKG. Thank you. You forget why you're at the store. You forget why you're in the bathroom. You forget why you're anywhere. And so this affects people deeply. So when people are going through trauma, and let's use like kind of what's going on right now, like what we talked about yesterday with Nancy's family. this affects you all the time. So if you're at work, when you're at anything you're doing in your life, it's hard to be present because this right here is actually an activated factor in your brain that is causing you to not function correctly. So that's something I want to bring up because people don't understand it. It's pretty normal when you're traumatized to have all these other effects. Now it sucks, and obviously I wish it wasn't. I wish it wasn't this way, but it's just reality. Is that what happens when trauma is at its worst? You stop being able to function on a regular basis. Traumatic stress is associated with increased cortisol, which we all know. I don't know about the antidepressants. Now, I don't want to get into a big thing about that. My personal opinion is I've been on, for a very short amount of time, I tried antidepressants, and it didn't really do much for me, to be honest with you. It just made me go pee a lot, which I guess was a very rare side effect for what I was taking. But for me, it really didn't heighten or lessen anything. More than anything, it really just, I would say, grounded a little bit. But yeah, I personally, I have not taken enough antidepressants to really be able to tell you yes or no. So we won't get into that. And I don't want to say anything wrong in that way because obviously I don't have enough knowledge there. So with the post-traumatic stress disorder, so let's go back to what that is. When trauma is bad enough, it will leave its mark. And when it leaves its mark the way that it does, it can get you to relive the thing that hurts you so badly. To the point where I didn't even know this was real until I started working into therapy and researching this. But I remember my first therapist told me there is such thing as basically secondhand trauma. Something can hurt you so badly that you hear about that you literally have a level of trauma that exists in you as if you experienced it yourself. You know, and I kind of had that mentality, like there's no way that's real. Like there's no way I can hear a story and then live through that but it was true. Like I couldn't open trash bags. I couldn't go near. I'll never forget this exact moments. We were in Rexburg. I had just heard about what happened with Tylee and JJ, and we drove by in the middle of downtown Rexburg at night, and they had a fire, and it stopped me from functioning. And I can feel that right now. Like I just feel it in my neck, in my back, like just chills, because it stopped everything I was thinking of, and I just was like looked at it, and yeah, I don't even know what to say. It just stopped me. It stopped everything I was doing and everything I was thinking, and I had one thought and one focus, and all I could think about is that trauma, as if I experienced it. I did not experience that firsthand, but it was that traumatizing. And the same thing with trash bags. I couldn't look at a trash bag. I couldn't look at duct tape. I couldn't even use it. And it really hurt it just felt so tangible. Like it felt like I saw it and heard it. Like there was a trauma of something I didn't experience, but it's a real thing. So the way this post-traumatic stress, what it can do is exactly, and smells exactly, Jessica. There's things that can trigger you would never know. And I'm going to give you guys an example without trying not to cry. There's a little girl at my daughter's school when we go to pick her up, and she looks just like Tylee, like a little Tylee. And it is so hard to see her every day. She's doing nothing wrong, and she doesn't even, she's living her life. But just to see someone look so similar to someone you love, like literally so similar, that alone, I've learned to get past that. Because I'm going to tell you guys a really vulnerable story here, just so you guys have an understanding context of what PTSD looks like when it's activated. Another big example is I was at the gym at our apartment. This was years ago, and I was working out, and a girl came in. It was just me and her, and she looked just like a grown-up Tylee too. She looked just like Tylee. And I remember I was doing abs, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and something like, what it felt like for me is it felt like an elevator drop. It felt like my mind dropped through my eyes, through my throat, down into my stomach, and everything just got activated. And it just reminded me that Tylee's never going to grow up. And so I literally ran out of the gym, like jogged, walked all the way back to our apartment on the other side of the complex, walked in the house, didn't say anything to anybody, and walked into the closet and started bawling. And that is, I'm trying to be really raw with you guys so you understand that this stuff is real and this can happen in any situation. If something like that while you're out triggers you, those are real, and it's okay to have those feelings, and it's okay. But there's what I want to also re-encourage you is there is a way where you can start to, not break down all the way, and that's the good thing about healing. I want to remind people when we talk about this stuff, PTSD, it affects you for the rest of your life, but you can get better and you can start to improve things and things like that. So I give you those examples so you understand that I'm not immune to this, and I'm not acting like I'm out of everything and that I'm this walking free of everything. Like, these things happen, and it's nobody's fault, and it's random. And I know a lot of people probably feel this way. If you see someone who reminds you of someone you love that's gone, that's always going to be hard. But PTSD also can go down to smells, sights, places, dreams. I want to jump into dreams real quick as well. Dreams can haunt you. There's dreams that are so real that when you wake up, you don't even know what you experienced is real or not. And it puts you in a position where, for me, I didn't want to go to sleep. Honestly, it was traumatizing. I was dreaming about my family and things happening, and all these dreams, I'm living in the moment, and my subconscious is playing out this scenario where I'm not able to help really. And so I've had dreams that I've written down where there's one dream specifically where I was like in this basement, and Lori was sitting there acting really arrogant and smug, and I knew that something had happened to the kid, so I was trying to go through her like iPad that she had, and in this dream, Charles was upstairs, and I remember they told me that they had taken people's lives by kicking them down the stairs. And so I'm trying to call Rob Wood in my dream, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I get outside? How do I call Rob Wood? I have to do something. So I go upstairs, and Charles, by the way, again, a dream, just trying to, if anybody's new to the stream, this is not a real thing. I went upstairs to Charles, and I'm like, you have to cover for me. I have to go call Rob Wood. And he starts, the only funny part of this dream is he goes, well, I got you, son. It's okay. Like, you're standing here talking to me. Like, he overplayed his hand. And I was like, Dad, stop. Like, don't overplay. Don't say anything. Just let me go outside. So I went outside, and it was this back area. Okay. And I remember this, it feels like this happened. That's why I'm telling you this dream, because it had a smell. It had a feeling. It had a lighting. It was like a simulation. It felt like. I go outside, and I walk up these back steps up to, like, basically concrete steps up to this canal. If you've ever been in Arizona and see the canals, there's a canal where it's like a concrete path with some rock, and then the canal itself. And upstairs, and I'm on the phone with Rob, he's like, I can't do anything unless there's these specific guidelines met, this and that. And I look over, and there's a girl, and she's chained, and she's going to be kicked down the stairs or kicked into the canal. So I know I have to do something right then and there. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. And the stairs I start hearing pattering up the stairs, and I knew Alex was coming up the stairs. And so my first thought was, I have to save her. And I was trying to get the evidence from Lori's iPad, and she was mocking it. Like, she was mocking me in the dream. She's like, yeah, we did this. We're going to do it again. It was very clear in the dream. And that happens a lot. So I'm telling you this because I could tell you that I feel like I lived this in real life, and it didn't happen, but it feels like that. PTSD has a really, really strong hold in your life. And there's this theory and feeling, and I want to kind of debunk this. The thought that you're going to just get better and that this just straight trajectory is very false about healing. It's okay to have an up and down battle with yourself and with life. I really don't like that idea that people think everything's just this uphill thing. It's just not linear. It's not. Healing's never going to be linear. And that's okay. What we can't do though is stay in the worst part of it forever, because people deserve to heal. You know what I mean? And I really don't like the idea that we're in this position now where people are not seeing that they are able to heal a little bit and then have some backtracking, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to keep going forward. You just have to keep fighting for it. So, but I know that there's different methods for everybody. Everybody's different. I tell you guys what works for me, what has worked for me, but PTSD to me has had a physical and mental toll in my life. And to the point where physically, if it ruins your sleep, you know, sleep is one of the most important things you can possibly do. Apple Eye, have you tried EMDR? I have. I have done EMDR. I did it for a while. I have some good coping mechanisms from it. But I switched therapists, and we're just do different kind of work right now, but we're probably going to be doing more EMDR stuff. But you have to take it so this is what another thing I want to say about how this affects you. You have to take it at a certain level and a certain pace. So if this is a hike over a mountain, don't try to sprint your way up the mountain, even though that was my mentality. My mentality in life with a lot of this, with pain, is break it, do it, rip that freaking Band-Aid right now, start the pain today, because that way in a couple months, I'll be cool, or I'll get better, or I'll start to heal. That has always been how I feel. Like, just break it, cut it, do whatever you got to do. And that's exactly what's so important, is that's not how it works. And that's what I mean. I try to not discourage people from healing. I just don't want you to have an unrealistic expectation of yourself that you have to get better instantly, or that you're not going to have a backtrack, or you're not going to feel bad, or you're not going to feel like you used to. I remember I told you guys about the algorithm. I've been seeing it a little bit more often, just because I've interacted with some things that are like for Men's Suicide Month and stuff like that, or just awareness in general. And so there's certain, once you like anything like that or interact with it, your algorithm kind of goes that way. And a lot of people kind of just sit there, and I hate to say this in the wrong way. Okay. So please understand my heart when I say this, but to force your way into a mentality that thinks that you can't overcome anything, and that it's wrong to be back in that place, or that you are a failure, is not the answer. It's not the answer. And that's not the truth. Oh, I knew you were going to say something about the hat, Kathy. I know you like this hat. Kathy got me this hat, by the way. I freaking love this hat. I'm still repping for the Chiefs. They're down and out. They're down and out, and I'm still rocking with them. PTSD is a bear, one day at a time. Exactly. I think that's what people miss when it comes to healing and how this affects you as a person. Like I said, healing isn't linear. You're not going to just walk into health and freedom in one day. You're going to start to feel better, but it's going to take time. And I think that's what's discouraging to all of us as people, is the amount of time it's going to take. I hate that idea that we're not patient enough to see what could be possible in 3 or 6 months. I hate that we don't take the time seriously enough to sit here and say, hey, I deserve to give myself some time. I feel like I'm sorry, this is going to be my cuss of the day. I feel like shit. There's no other word that describes how I feel. I feel horrible. I don't see a way out of this. I'm in a low place. But you're not giving yourself the time to see if you can overcome those things. And I get it. Like, that pain is palpable. You can feel it. It rules every day. It rules your life. It rules your sleep. And it doesn't look like there's a way out of that. But patience is key here. And, oh man. I just see it all the time. And people get caught into this place you know, just stuck. And then they make a decision. They make, and even though you know who's so crazy, who's talking about it when you're watching all these, you know, videos about it. But you have like people like Robin Williams sitting here saying suicide's not the answer. It's a permanent solution to a temporary thing, who later takes their own life. It's the people who have been in that boat, who have the most experience, who tell you stuff like that, because they know what that looks like and feels like. I'm seeing it all too often though. People who don't see a way out of their life because they're in this place. The PTSD is haunting them. They don't see a way out of this. They think their life is over. The hole has started. And that is all right here. Obviously, there's other parts of it, your memories, things like that. But right here, right there, prefrontal cortex. It will mess with you because it takes away your ability to make clean, sound decisions. And that's why I tell people, you have to be really careful with your emotions here, right? Emotions are a good thing. They can be used for good and they can be used for evil. Your emotions and your heart can be dictated where you are in your life. If you're having a really hard time making bad decisions or making really important decisions while you're in a very emotional state, I do not recommend it. And I'll tell you, because emotions change, feelings change, times change, seasons change, your perspective will change. And so you have to be really careful. Your emotions really will run you and make you do things that you normally wouldn't do. And I try to do this every time. I never want you to feel ashamed of what you've done or what you've chosen to do in an emotional time, the things you've said. We've all done that. That's part of being a human being. I'm just trying to say this is the place where we can apply this to ourselves in our trauma and say, no, I'm not going to make a really important decision in my life when I'm going through hell. It's just not a good idea. I'm not ready to make that kind of decision. Or if I am going to make that decision, I'm going to really seek counsel, because I don't want to make the wrong decision, right? I don't want to do the wrong thing here or put myself in a position because I feel a certain way. So I think it's really important to have emotions and not run us, but let's acknowledge our emotions and then really figure out, what do I really think and feel, and give myself some time. That's how I think we should really be handling a lot of our trauma. Let's give yourself some grace, man. Give yourself the time of day. Because I just see people all the time, young men, young women, put so much freaking pressure on themselves to the point where they think that their life is over because they didn't get into the school they thought they were going to get into, or they're not married yet or having children. Who wrote your script? Why are you off timing? I was the same way, because there's all these societal pressures to do things. And this goes back into trauma. There's societal pressure to feel a certain way or look a certain way, be a certain way. Swear jar, fuck all that. Okay? I know you don't, I'm telling you right now, fuck all that. It is not your job to try to meet a criteria that is outside of your timeline. That's not your job, that's not your life, and that's not why you're on this planet, is to sit here and try to meet the social standards of what society is trying to put on you. Imagine, you know what, one of the most encouraging things I've ever seen, especially when I was younger, you ever see how there's people who didn't make it until they were like, 30s, 40s, 50s, got their first acting role. Huge people, like huge celebrities, didn't get their first acting roles till they're in their late 40s and their 50s. Musicians who didn't make a song till they were later in their life, right? Didn't find success in their life until a certain point. Imagine if they would have given up. Imagine if you would have given up on yourself. You're right there. You're right there on the cusp of doing something real with yourself in your life. And you're at a point where you have to make the decision if you're going to quit or not. And I'm not saying this to sound hard. I'm saying this because this is really where it comes down to. When it gets this bad and the PTSD is at its biggest and you're in the middle of your hell, everyone will get there. You are at your rock bottom. You will get there at some point in your life, or you have been there. You might have a couple rock bottoms in different ways. The point is to learn from it, to grow from it, and this shouldn't be the end of you, though. If anything, it's a new beginning. A new beginning for you. And as hard as that's going to sound right now, it is coming from perspective. But people don't give themselves that time. I love Jim from The Office's story. He went out to New York to be an actor. It wasn't working. He was waiting tables, and he was ready to quit. His mom said, "We'll give it a little bit longer. Don't quit yet." And he's like, "No, Mom, come pick me up." They made a deal. I think he had a year to try to make it in New York. He's like, "No, this sucks. I'm not doing this." She said, "No, just give it a few more weeks. Give it till the end of the year," or whatever she said. And he's like, "Okay, like I'll just wait a little bit longer." And then he books The Office. Like, that's the kind of thing people, these ideas of success stories, it's the same thing in your life. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing that ever happened. That's this huge storyline that's like, you made it into The Office. What I'm trying to say is this happens in our lives where breakthrough is closer than you think, and there's lessons to be learned, but the pain's so immense that we give up on ourselves, and we start to drop down. We start to lose sight of reality, and then people give up on themselves to the point where they either just stop trying and they live the rest of their life with failure as a failure, or they do the ultimate thing. So that's why I had to stop there and just really get on that. But I never want you to ever feel ashamed for having these feelings. Depression, anxiety, all of these things, they're all real, and there's no shame in that to feel this way. It's just that I want you to know, yes, there's an ability to make it through this stuff. This is not just simply your life sentence. This is something that can be worked on, and you just have to work through, but you have to slow yourself down and say, this is going to be a process. And that is so hard, especially in a world where everything does come really quickly. We need to learn to slow down. And I think, honest to God, life used to be so much more simple when you didn't have the world the way that it is, the way that news works, the way that social media works. You didn't have to compare yourself to people. You didn't have to think about all of these ideas. You didn't have to see people breaking up and telling you their horrible stories. There's a good and a bad side to everything. But I think that this stuff feeds our subconscious all day, and it's exhausting to your nervous system. So just be really careful with what you're watching, especially like shows and stuff. It will depress you. It'll get into your head. And just be really careful. If you're really consuming a lot of media that's negative, I promise you it's going to get into your brain at some point. Okay. Effects of stress are traumatic stress. Traumatic stressors such as early trauma can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, which affects about 8% of Americans at some time in their life, as well as depression, substance abuse, disassociation, personality disorders, and health problems. Again, I truly believe that health problems really do start mentally for a lot of things. I'm not saying that, I just think what happens is when your cortisol is high because you're so worried and stressed and down, your immune system goes down, things can happen. I'm not saying that I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you a perspective. I do believe that it can affect you physically and really cause your body to do some really funky things, almost turn on you. I've seen it with people in their thyroids and stuff. It's almost like your body is mirroring how you feel and your mind, and people just start having these health issues after these huge stressors in their life. I don't think that's a coincidence. Again, not a doctor, just an observation from somebody who's really interested in psychology and, people's health and their well-being. So I've seen it and I know that it exists. But for many trauma victims, PTSD can be a lifelong problem. The President's New Freedom Commission report highlights the importance of providing service for mental disorder related to early trauma. Again, we talk about this all the time on this channel. When we talk about these criminals that we cover or these cases, it's always psychological, right? Psychologically, something happens to somebody and then it changes you. So this is why it's like, how is this not the most important thing being taught? How is this not in school to deal with what you're going through? There's a string on my hat. I got to cut it. How is this not the number one subject of human beings? Let's not create a manual on how to be a human, but let's do something where we start to at least understand and agree with how we function. We all have inner thoughts. We all have a subconscious, and it's dealt with in different ways. And so there just needs to be a lot more of this upfront and having these conversations, because people feel really alone. And I think that's the isolation that really makes you feel worse. You think you're the only one in the world that is experiencing this, and that's a lonely place to be, you know? Yeah, I agree with you. Christian says, I think that mental health is not taken seriously because people who are just having a couple bad days go and claim they have depression, so it's becoming a new cop out for some people. I agree with you. I think some people use mental health as a crutch rather than really taking it seriously and working through it. It's something like it's a health problem, whether it's mental or physical. Imagine that you have, like, I have fungal meningitis. I have to take medicine every single day, twice a day, for my fungal meningitis. That's exactly what you should be doing. You have to administer some kind of medicine towards your mental health. And that doesn't always necessarily mean pills, but it means something. You can't ignore it. And I think that that's the point. Let's pull some people and let's talk about that. How about Jody Hildebrand? How about the fact that she said all the things that she was feeling basically became the reason why she was abusing and hurting people and hurting children, and was on a path of pure destruction, possibly taking lives. Even if she didn't take lives on purpose, the circumstances she was creating for those kids would have taken their life. And she caused lifelong trauma without a thought of it. And then she goes into jail and says, well, I'm supposed to be here, and this is what all prophets go through. Then she blames the kids. This is all because of where she was mentally, how she grew up, how she felt about herself. Why don't we go to Lori? Same exact situation. Trauma from her past, trauma she put herself through. Next thing you know, becomes a monster, becomes a product, and says, you know what, F this. I don't care anymore, right? And it's almost like they just give up on anything with any human pieces. But remember, this is the chips. I want to slow down and talk about how trauma and this stuff in your body, it will chip away at you, and it will do it over time. This is not always one big snap. I think we have it wrong with how media presents these people. A lot of times this is years in the making for how people get where they are. It's a slow chip away. It's just as much of a slow chip away to try to heal yourself and say, okay, let's work through this. And it sucks. It re-brings up all the trauma. It might put you back into a place you thought you were out of, but maybe you just got really good at disassociating from the feelings so you could survive. You're a survivor. And so your automatic thing is, I got to dump whatever's not, at some point I got to dump this because it's causing me too much pain. So I'm going to survive. So I'm going to disassociate, which I think Lori does. Or I'm going to, drown myself in a substance. Or I'm going to, do something that causes me not to feel what I'm feeling. My feelings are so overwhelming that I have to find a coping mechanism. And this is exactly what I mean by we're all teapots when it comes to this stuff. Pressure is building from our lives, especially if you have a really complex trauma. And at some point, you've got to pop the top. And the way that people vent that top is this kind of stuff, especially when it comes to like substances. I really feel for people who have any kind of substance abuse, because it's them trying to literally just kill the pain that they feel. And I don't think I don't know a lot of people who are just recreationally addicted to substance, because it might feel fun or whatever if they get feeling from it. But I truly believe it's the people who are truly drowning and seriously going through hell who turn to a substance, because it's the only thing that's even touching the emotional wounds that they feel. That's how I feel. I'm not saying that it's not actually addictive or doesn't have addictive properties. I'm just saying that's usually what drives someone to those places, because it's the mental, emotional well-being of that person that makes them want to escape reality. And I think that that's what we are presented every day with. You can go on your phone and escape reality anytime you want. You could literally put on effing goggles and see into another world, and it's only going to keep getting more and more synthetic. We're only going to keep advancing technology to the point where you can create a second life that has no consequence. And, video games are like that as now. Imagine what it'll be like in 15 years. Imagine what it'd be like in 20 years. where the ability to escape reality is never been, it's going to be like, hey, you can sit in your house, you can experience life with no consequence, you can just watch life. Next thing you know, it's Wall-E. I'm not kidding, bro. Excuse me. It's going to be Wall-E at some point. Okay? A life with no consequence, no pain, no putting yourself out there. It's all there. It's all available, and it's an escape from reality, and it's putting us in positions to ignore the pain. How long can you ignore it, bro? It's a freaking elephant in your house. And no matter how much you cover it up, no matter how much you pretend it's not there, it's there, and it's hurting you, and it's not going away. And so what are your choices? And to me, it is literally very black and white. And I hope this doesn't sound too, I don't want this to ever sound cruel or disassociated to reality, but it's like you either completely give up on yourself and never try, or you try. That's what it feels like when you get to this point, when you're so hurt by the trauma in your life, especially from your childhood. You just kind of like, how long can you keep being destroyed by this? How long do you deserve to feel this way? And you know what I want to say? I think a lot of victims of things that happen to them in their life create a self-destructive pattern because their parent didn't love them enough to teach them that they don't deserve it. And you might think, well, I deserve this. I'm a bad person. Stop that. That's not a healthy thought, okay? You destroying yourself with substances, you destroying yourself with all these things is not a deserved thing. You forgot the word grace, and you probably have it for others, and you're not having it for yourself. Hurting yourself doesn't justify anything, okay? I'm going to say another thing. Physically hurting yourself, right? I don't know if I can say the word because I don't want YouTube to get all whatever. But inflicting pain on yourself also is not going to do anything for you. And it's just like, you have to see it for what it is. I hate to watch people suffer and hurt themselves more physically or take their own life. Because they really think they deserve pain. And then there's all this stuff that glorifies that idea. Put me through pain. Hurt me. I want to be hurt. Now, I'm going to take control of that feeling of being hurt. I'm going to step on top of that, and I'm going to be the one that says, I like being hurt. I enjoy this. Okay? Then it turns into 50 Shades of Grey, and that's a whole other story. You guys went on my crap. You got on my crap about 50 Shades of Grey. Tell me I'm not wrong. You know what we're going to do? I'm going to do a psychological breakdown on him as a character so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is coming to our channel. I have a bunch of people that are real and fictional that we are going to do psychological breakdowns on because it is going to bring context to how people function. I'm telling you right now, bro. It's literally, that is a prime example of somebody who takes the pain they went through and then says, I'm going to be the one, I'm going to turn this into, I like this. I'm going to use this. I'm going to become this. I'm going to be the one that finds some control in an uncontrollable environment. So now I do this, and I say I like it. Stop, bro. Stop. I know, but I'm serious. It's the best example I can think of. Because it's not like other characters where they're very extreme into like other parts. It's very clear. He went through that trauma as a child, okay? And then he says, I'm going to do this. I like this now. This is my thing. No, it's not. He should have gone to therapy. No, I'm saying, if he chose that differently for himself, that's different. He didn't. He was abused as a child. I don't know why this book was written the way that it was, or whatever the case may be, but damn. He is a hurt person who turned his pain into pleasure, and that is exactly what all this stuff is, man. That's all what people are trying to do. They're trying to gain some sense of self-control when your life is spiraling. Circumstantially, you're spiraling. You're not where you want to be, or you've gone through hell. He goes to therapy. I don't know, bro. I haven't seen every single shade. Okay. I only saw the first one ever and I was not a fan, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. That's nothing to do with this conversation. But when we start talking about those characters and the real people that I want to psychologically break down with you guys, it's as simple as this. That feels like you're controlling the uncontrollable, which is what we are designed to do in a sense, is try to feel like we're not spiraling. If you've ever been abused, I don't know if I'm ready for this conversation right now. I'm not going to go into details here. We'll save this for another time. But any abuse you've ever suffered, I think you become a few different ways, but the main ones would be people either stop the cycle of abuse. Okay, I'll give you 3 examples that I think what happens to most people. You stop the cycle completely and become a healthy person. That's the most important and / one you hope for anybody. Or you become an abuser yourself, and the person who was abused starts to do the exact same behavior and mirror those things and do those to other people. And then the last one is you go through abuse and then you spend the rest of your life as someone who takes on pain or allows pain or deserves pain or something of that nature. So you're either always the one under, you become the one on top, or you completely heal from those things and take it for what it is. But you know what I mean? We want to do it the healthy way. So I don't want to trigger people. I understand. I'm just trying to give you a reason why we're talking about all this stuff, you know? Okay. I'm going to tell you right now. I think that right now I got some grays up in my hair because of stress. So it definitely has a physical toll. It could be genetics, but I don't think anybody else in my family ever went gray at 29, bro. I'm just going to say that out loud. Whatever. To understand how traumatic stress occurring in different stages of the life cycle interacts with the developing brain, it is useful to review the normal brain development. The normal brain undergoes changes in structure, function across a lifespan from early childhood to late life. Now, I do want to hit on this as well. It matters when you went through your trauma because of what it does for where your brain is at. And those brain things, like we talked about, create pathways and create things because of where you were in your life. You were underdeveloped brain cannot handle those things. And so this is why it sticks with you. It sticks with you for the rest of your life. And this is why childhood trauma is so prevalent, because people will be, had ignored it their whole life and then one day break down from it or start having all these issues come up. And it's because they never were able to deal with that childhood trauma, whatever that looks like. But you can, once you're ready to go to that place, and you're not alone in that. So I just want to say that. That way there's no misconception here. Undergoing these normal developing brain changes is critical for determining the difference between normal development and pathology. So imagine when your life, the way your life is, you're creating a path. What happens when trauma happens, it almost sweeps you off where your path is and takes you down a forced path and creates a imagine water running. Okay, so your water's supposed to be running like this. This is normal pathways. This is just normal development growth. Trauma comes in and F's all that up, destroys it, and creates a whole nother waterfall over here and starts to create all of these freaking rivers that didn't exist before. And they run deep, and they're there because something really bad happened at some point and changed the literal pathways in your brain, because that source of water, the running part that's coming, is now being filtered into these rivers, and these rivers are all different. And so this is what I'm trying to explain when it comes to trauma. When those things happen, it really does literally take your life and your lens of life and changes it. Okay? This is what we mean by these pathways, because these are where your inner thoughts start to matter, and this is where this stuff happens. So I'll give a prime example. If you ever felt like you were not good enough, the filter is probably, let's just make up a scenario. Your parent never taught you your value, or said you weren't good enough, you spend the rest of your life telling yourself, I'm not good enough. If you feel that way, the lens and the river that you run through is I'm not good enough. And that I'm not good enough river spreads into everything. All of your confidence, the person you pick to spend your life with, if you do spend your life with, depending on how you feel about yourself, what you deserve in life, what career you have, what you think about yourself, your kids, people around you. And you will spend the rest of your life trying to prove that you are enough. And, you know, it's a huge spiral because that pathway was created. That's what we're really hitting on here. Those pathways can be redirected the same way they were created. So we dam up the freaking source. We cut it off at the source, and we start to try to heal and re-navigate where we put our energy and our thought processes into. And it's a matter of repetition. It's like shooting a basketball. You're going to get better the more you practice, the more that you work on it, the more that you try your shots, move your feet, set your hips, line up with the basket. You're going to learn how to become a better shooter if you do that. It's the same exact way with practicing with these neural pathways. You have to get there. You have to work on it, and you have to stop it at the source, and you have to start talking to yourself a certain way, and you have to stop allowing those old pathways, the old water, to keep running down the same places, even though it feels familiar because you've lived your whole life that way. This is where you take a minute and stop yourself. And this is what I mean by taking power over your mind, saying, I'm not going to allow myself to go through this anymore. I'm not going to keep telling myself I'm not good enough. I'm not going to keep living the rest of my life feeling like a piece of crap. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to keep saying that to myself. So that's where this all comes into, right there. Now, here we go. Neurobiology. Okay. I love this. Prefrontal cortex right here. Whoa. That's kind of fun. Okay. So this is your prefrontal cortex. This is where I was talking about. This was what, excuse me. This is what was lit up on my EKG. This is your hippocampus back here. And so conditioned fear in the amygdala, but this is where, okay, so when you're high stress and it sits right here, this is your decision-making part of your brain. I think your hippocampus is more of your like memory, and then cerebral is your long-term memory. There's different parts of your brain that do different things, right? I didn't really mean to go all the way in there, but we want to talk about how, like I said, my frontal cortex now, I can still suffer from that. And honestly, a lot of this for me personally is because my meningitis and my medicine both affect my like fogginess and like ability to just think straight sometimes. It's really hard to fight that now that I already had all the trauma that was already doing that. It's like adding in a whole nother layer of physical reasoning why my brain is just not doing what I need to do. So I have to work really, really, really hard to not be foggy or remember what I'm doing. And I have like a whiteboard that I try to write everything down on because sometimes I just forget what I'm doing. So I worked a lot on this specific place, which is the daily decision making, not being dictated by trauma or thinking that something bad's going to happen or projecting into the future, which is the anxiety we talked about. PTSD is characterized as specific symptoms, including intrusive thoughts. Huge one. Intrusive thoughts are almost to like a level of OCD, I would say, but not OCD because we don't want to like say you have OCD if you don't. But in my opinion, an intrusive thought comes in so hard that says things like, this is going to happen, this bad thing's about to happen, or you're going to lose everybody of this. And it's just these really, 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 hard, things. Like they just come in like a freaking wrecking ball. Call Miley Cyrus. Hyperarousal, which I'm assuming, I think hyperarousal goes outside of just being sexually hyperarousal. I think it's just general. Like, I think it's like hyper also, what was the word? I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think it also applies outside of just like arousal of like sexual desire. I think it also is in a position of like arousal in general of, I don't know, just like overall excitement, I would say. Flashbacks can stop you. Flashbacks can come at any moment. And like we said, there are triggers. When people use that word, I don't like when people use the word triggers lightly. It's not you. I don't like therapy words and real words being applied to things that are not what someone might understand. And maybe they just don't understand the context, but like these things, when you really have experienced them, are debilitating type of situation. So a flashback, like we talked about, you smell a certain smell, it puts you back in it. Like you feel like you are in that moment, you feel it all over again, it rushes your body, you exist in there like it's like you're replaying the moment. That's what a flashback feels like. Nightmares can be the same exact way, only maybe even more vivid or less vivid. And then sleep disturbances, which I've had from nightmares and just in general, like not being able to fall asleep or waking up and having a panic attack. And I'm going to put you onto some game here. I don't know how I did this, but like 3 years ago, I was about to have the worst panic attack of my life. And I don't know how I found a way to control it. I was going to hyperventilate. I felt everything in my body going into panic mode. Like I thought I was going to literally die from this panic attack. And I don't know what I did, but I just found a mental gear where I said, you're not going to have a panic attack. And I learned to just curve out the full losing it part. And I don't know how I did it, because I was the worst panic attack I've ever felt in my life. And I curved it. And I've done it ever since then. I know I have the strength to stop myself from going from no control, basically. And I'm telling you that because it is possible, because I've had panic attacks before. This, I know, it was like a tidal wave. It sucked down and went all the way back up into my chest, into my, like right here. And I was about to literally like faint from a panic attack. And I curved it. And I said, okay, every time I'm having a panic attack, I'll do this. But I've woken up and had panic attacks in the middle of the night. That's the worst, because you're disoriented, like at level 1000. And you wake up and you have these feelings from your dream or whatever's on your chest. It feels like you're physically having something in your chest happen to you. And you have to learn to calm yourself down and just say, I'm not going to lose full control. I can feel this feeling. It feels horrible. I acknowledge it, but I do have the ability to not lose it. And I think it really is a split-second decision about curving that and not allowing yourself to do it. So I want to share that with you, because I've had lots of panic attacks in my life, and I didn't think it was possible to stop one, but I've even woken up disoriented, barely even knowing where I am, having a panic attack, and somehow finding a ground to not start hyperventilating and really lose it. And if I can explain that more to you, I will. But there's a way to curve them. And then where was I? Sleep disturbances, changes in memory and concentration, huge, like short-term memory and concentration. Startle responses, 1000%. Somebody even coming near you and moving, or level 10 fear. I have one thing I've used, I guess, for good. I think I've seen TikToks and stuff about this, but like men do have like a hypervigilance kind of by nature sometimes. But I think for me, my hypervigilance is like on another level. I never feel like I can have that restful moment, because I don't want to ever miss something. And I think it's all because of so much trauma in my life, so many different things. But there's definitely that part of me that's unbelievably hypervigilant, more than probably normal. Like I told you guys on Instagram not too long ago, I put a video up and said I was sitting at the table my back was facing behind me was our sliding glass door. And my first thought was, I have to move because this gives the sniper a perfect shot. That's not a normal thought, okay? I'm just going to say straight up, that's not a normal thought. That's not a good thought. But I laughed at myself because it was such a ridiculous thing to think. I'm giving someone a shot to take a shot at my head. So I'm going to sit where the wall is so they can't take the shot. Again, that's what I'm trying to talk about. Stuff that's even really not a normal thought or like something that you should be thinking of, but it's true. I've thought about it. And I think about it a lot. I look at cars differently. I look at people differently. I watch people's mannerisms. I watch their eyes. I watch their head movement. Yeah, I just really watch people differently now. And that's just from, a lot of trauma. So I try to use it as just that part being a positive in a sense of like, if I can't control that right now, I'm going to allow myself to be that way. I'm not going to keep that anxiety in as part of it, but I'll do it as a safety protection measure for my family. Like if we're out looking around and making sure that I don't see anything. Okay. And then stress results in acute and chronic changes in neurochemical systems in specific brain regions, which result in long-term changes the brain circuits. So as a former electrician, what I will say is, if you understand the most basic of electricity, imagine a car battery, you plug something onto it, you put the positive, and let's say you're jump starting, right? You have that pathway from positive to positive. Well, I feel it's the same way in your brain. Its negatives create the same thing. Or you can keep the whole analogy of the water, but really what's happening is you are creating you're not always you, okay? But those circuits, those neural pathways are created in trauma. They reflect that event and they shape things, right? And so over time, you develop that as your normal. And this is where therapy has to a lot of times go backwards and say, I got to start at the beginning. I can't just start where I am now. I got to go back and work through my problems. And that sucks. It's hard. It's not fun. Nobody wants to do that. I'm telling you right now. But it's just not a good time. Sorry, my throat is like, I've had really bad allergies, so it feels like there's something in my throat. Brain regions that are felt to play an important role in PTSD include hippocampus, amygdala, and the medial prefrontal cortex. Cortisol and norepinephrine, whatever, are the two neurochemical systems that are critical to the stress response. So I want to say another thing back to the physical side. When you're having a lot of stress, you are taking on an unbelievable amount of cortisol. Things are being dumped. So this is real. There are chemical changes that happen to you. I don't want to get into a big thing here today about this. But what I will say is, let me think about what I want to say here, because I have a lot to say in this area. Let me put it this way. When I was growing up, everybody in my church, everybody in the LDS church around me really said everything was chemical imbalances. What I will say is, okay, I can acknowledge the biology of the chemical imbalances, but the thinking that everything needs to be corrected with pills only to fix those chemical imbalances really bothers me, because there was a time where life was probably really stressful before we had the ability to prescribe this medicine. So again, let me slow down and preface what I'm about to say very clearly. It is not against or shaming or doing anything against medications. Okay, if you take mental medication, depression medication, absolutely not a judgment here. What I am saying is, I don't want people to feel dependent only and think that's their only way out, when these things can that should be a treatment and it gets you to get better. I don't want people to be, and I think sometimes this happens, people set you up for failure to say that this is how it's supposed to be for the rest of your life. You have to take this pill so you can feel this way. But the truth is, that pill should be however long it takes you to get to that place. And then you can also, your chemistry will change once you stop having the dump, right? Once you start having this stuff happen to you and you work through this stuff, it will stop producing so much cortisol. So those chemical imbalances won't exist if you work on all that stuff, right? But I don't want to make people dependent on anything, right? To feel like I have to do this so I can be better. I don't like that. That's just my personal opinion. And again, like I said, I've been in that place. I've taken them. I'm not judging. I'm just telling you, I feel like that's avoiding long-term health if that's not the plan. Someone should lay it out and say, look, I want you to take these for as long as you can, and then we're going to work through all this other stuff, and we're going to really get you to where you need to be. There needs to be like a path forward. That's what I'll say. I want to find the other part of this. This is a really interesting article if you guys are interested in it. It's called Traumatic Stress. You guys can see this right here about what it does. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff that goes into. There was one part, though, that talks about how it physically messes with you. Okay, so right here. So MRI assessments and abnormalities in PTSD. So finding similar hippocampal volume appear to be an associated range of trauma related to psychiatric disorders. As long as there is a presence of psychological trauma, we have used the MRI and a smaller hippocampal volume PTSD in depression and early abuse, and borderline personality disorder with early abuse, and dissociative identity disorder with early abuse. The greatest magnitude of the difference we have seen in DID patients is usually who suffer severe early childhood SA histories. We do not find changes in the hippocampal volume in patients with panic disorder without a history of abuse. We found similar amygdala volume in PTD or BPD with early abuse, and increased amygdala volume in depression. So what I'm trying to say is they can physically see differences in your brain. Okay, this is the physical part of this. This ranges from mental to physical changes, different parts of your brain firing off. And then, like I said, going down into the rest of your body, causing other parts of that damage, taking down your immune system, making you susceptible more to being sick, making you more susceptible to possible diseases, things of that nature. This is a very real and serious thing. So I always say this, but today is a great day to start on somewhere, somehow. You deserve to work through the life that you've experienced. This doesn't have to be your forever, and I'll tell you right now, I always try to give you guys my perspective, because I'm someone who has to really fight with myself. Sometimes I have to carry my own self out of these holes and say, look, this is a temporary, even if temporary is a long time, your whole life doesn't have to reflect this or this exact scenario or this way. You can do other things. And so trying to really work through those points in my pain and say, keep looking forward to the future in a good way. Live in the moment, have hope in the future, and try to forgive and move past the past and not let that dictate what I think about myself now or into the future. Best advice I could possibly give you. That to me is the perfect scenario in this world. Living in the moment, not having stress or anxiety about the future, but having hope that I'm going to keep taking a step today. It's like working out. I'm going to get in shape, but it's going to take me 6 months to a year. But I'm going to show up at the gym every day. I'm going to eat healthy. And then one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to finally have the results I've been looking for. I'm going to see them. There's going to be a change in my physical body. It's the exact same way in your mental health. You have to put in the work. I know I'm not going to feel great tomorrow. I know I'm not going to look the way I want to. And it's going to take a while, and it's going to be consistency, and it's going to take work. But this is the point. It really has to be an acceptance of, I'm not going to project myself and say, I wish I could be where I could be in a year. How about I'll get there. Let me work really hard, because if I take today seriously, then I take tomorrow seriously, and then I take the next day seriously, imagine the progress I would have made. That's exactly how you have to apply this to your mental health and life. Imagine where you could be in 6 months with some good therapy. Imagine the things you could have tackled. Imagine the revelations you could have had. Imagine getting to know yourself. Maybe you've never met yourself. Maybe you've never spent the time with yourself to realize that you are a great person. And guess what? I'm going to say this for my next cuss of the thing. Maybe you've really had a fucked up life, or you fucked up things up in your life. That doesn't make you the product and result of that only. You know what I mean? I really don't like the idea that people project one thing, and that is who they are for the rest of time. It's not true. It's simply not true. And I see people doing this every day on social media, putting this message out there. They're unlovable. They're sulking. And guess what? It's okay to sulk. It's just not okay to make sulking your life. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. I heard a great quote the other day. Excuse me. Gosh dang. I heard a great quote the other day, which is, if you're going to talk to God and I think you also talk to yourself too, but talk to God, say it the way it is. Say, hey, I'm mad, God. Hey, I'm upset. I'm really upset. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. Acknowledge yourself. Acknowledge what you're going through to yourself. Hey, I'm not happy. I wish I could be doing this. I wish my life was better. I wish my life was different. I want other things that I don't have. And then you can start to really work through the life that you want and need. But blaming someone else is not going to get you there. Blaming yourself isn't going to get you anywhere. Take the time to feel your feelings. Cry, be angry, be happy. There's no one perfect way to grieve anything. And then it's okay to grieve things that you've lost that aren't necessarily like gone, in a sense, like the life you wish you had, or the parent you wish you had, or whatever the case may be. You can grieve those things as well. There's no shame in that. Just don't make it your permanent lifestyle. Like, I see it every day. People making that their permanent life, and because they find fuel there, they find a place to survive there. They find a new normal, and they find a community, and then we're all sulking in the wrong ways. We're not ever going to get better, and we're just talking about our problems without a solution. And guess what? Sometimes the solution is, look, I don't know what I'm going to do with this situation. I have no idea how to tackle this. I don't know how I'll ever move on from this. And that's just admitting where you are. But the answer is, okay, well, I'm also not going to live the rest of the entirety of my life feeling this way and dealing with this one thing and having this project for the rest of time. I'm not going to do that. It's really important to look at yourself with a real mirror. Learn to be your own best friend, in a sense. Advocate for yourself. Be there for yourself. Show up for yourself. You wouldn't believe what people act like when they're loved. And if no one's loving you, then learn to love yourself. I'm going to start freaking crying, bro. Just love yourself. Like, you don't need anybody to tell you that you're worth it. I'll tell you, you're worth it. You are. Whoever told you you weren't doesn't know what they're talking about, probably feels the same way that you do. They have their own issues. They haven't had the love. Because guess what? People who feel loved, they don't run around telling everybody else bad stuff. If you feel love, if you know what love is, you want to spread that. That's the biggest thing in our world people agree on, is that they just want love. Every human being wants that. And guess what? Sometimes you have to love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, how can you truly love others? I'm not saying you don't love them. You don't have feelings of love. You don't care about them. I'm saying to know that you love yourself, no matter what, is not selfish or narcissistic. It means that you see that you are worth something. And guess what? When people don't feel that way, they hurt themselves or they hurt others because they're in pain. But you've got to stop blaming anything else. Just feel your feelings, even if it is other people's fault. At some point, that doesn't matter. I could sit here and blame Lori for ruining my life forever, and I'd be valid, more than valid. Like, there's so much stuff you guys don't know about, and I'm not saying that to sound any type of way. I'm just being honest. Like, there's a lot more in the background that happened in my life because of everything that is way outside the scope of what we've talked about on this channel. I could sit here and tell you guys that Lori ruined everything for me, ruin my life, ruin my family, ruin my future, ruin their future, ruin everything. And guess what? I'm not better from that. Even if it's true, it doesn't make me any better. It doesn't make me a better anything. It doesn't give me better perspective. It just gives me a reason why I can say, well, my life is not going the way I wanted to because of Lori. Lori really, really effed up my life. And this is her fault. And you know what? I'm going to sit here for the rest of the time and I'm not going to help anybody. I'm not going to do anything with anything. I'm not going to go out there and try to talk about being vulnerable or anything. I'm not going to help a single person. I'm just going to exist. And I'm going to say, well, you know, if Lori wouldn't have done this, if I wouldn't have gone through this, if I had this, you know, but you don't. Playing the what if game doesn't get you anywhere. Doesn't help you. If anything, it tortures you. I'm telling you right now, I there's times where I felt like the Martian. I feel like that right now. There's times where I feel I am alone as you can be as a human, misunderstood, not looked at the same way, and it doesn't give me an excuse. It doesn't. Nobody gets to dictate how I feel about myself. Nobody can dictate the love I can give to other people, and nobody can dictate what's important to me and what my calling is. I don't have to go out and try to prove that I'm worthy of love. I can't do that. Nobody can do that. I can't exchange my soul for your love. I can't exchange my arm for your love. And you shouldn't either. And guess what? I can't sit here and spend the rest of my life telling myself that I have a reason why I didn't do something. Like this channel. This is, again, very raw here, so you guys know. I never thought this would happen. And in a lot of ways, you know what? I'm just going to say it how it is. So sometimes I think I'm going to be misunderstood, but I'll just say it how it is. I didn't ask to be here. I never wanted to be in this position, and I would have never chose this for myself. And now look at what has happened. Look at the community. Look at the people around us. Look at the conversations we're having. Look at what we're doing. It's amazing. If I would have sat there and sulked like I was, just saying F everything, I'm just going to work, come home, see my kids, go to work the next day, come home, see my kids, never say a word about what I've struggled with, never talk about my experiences. I don't know. But it always bugged me. I always felt like I was supposed to, and I just felt this like desire / push to share things in my life, because I know I'm not the only one, bro. I know I'm not. I know I've experienced some things maybe others haven't, but it doesn't change the fact that there's feelings that I feel I know people relate to. So, you know, and here we are. And I'm really, really grateful for it. And there really are no words for this. What an amazing community and family you guys are. And that's all that matters. It's all that matters is that good comes back in. You guys know I'm not a perfect person, and I struggle a lot, and I have to constantly learn to reground myself, because no matter who tells me or showed me, it's still going to come down to what I think about myself. If I'm rejecting all of that love, you know, I might miss it. So if I keep rejecting myself, it's only going in the wrong place. Learn to love yourself. Learn to choose yourself. Learn to know that you are not valued at what you give, but just who you are, and then you'll want to give. Like, people have it backwards. They just have it backwards. They think if I do this thing, if I earn this thing, if I show this thing, then I'll be loved. Then I'll get the thing I want the most. Then I'll have some recognition or be seen or acknowledged. And truly, once you feel loved and accepted, that stuff just comes from your heart, the giving part of you, the part of you that wants to make everybody help feel better, the part of you that wants to give the world something. And that's why we talk about these other cases, these other families. Just know that that's where all of this comes from, is a place of like, look, the world doesn't need more negativity or more coverage from 15 different perspectives or 100,000 different people telling you somewhat of the same thing. Obviously, when we cover these things, I try to bring it back to a reality, and I hope that is coming across. That's really just the whole point of it all. Just try to rehumanize us, man, and not give ourselves, and make our lives better, because it all starts with mental. We could win the lottery, we could do a lot of great things, and those would be great, cool things, but they don't fill you with love. They don't give you the thing that's going to get you to be happy and content. And you know what? I think the misconception is that this is our whole lives should be chasing happiness. There's no happiness without your downs. There's no happiness without going through hell, man. You just don't know what that would feel like. But we don't need to be adding more negativity into the world, I'll tell you that. So, I'm just telling you right now, the thing you think, the greener grass, is never, this isn't a cliche, this is reality. There's no perfect scenario, there's no perfect spouse, there's no perfect job, there's no perfect home. There's amazing things in this life, and I'm not saying you shouldn't want or desire good things in your life. What I'm saying is they're not going to fill holes and fill things that are only going to be filled with love and only going to be filled through healing. And you have to get alone with yourself sometimes and work through that stuff so you have a calmness and a peace and the ability to know and recognize what that feels like, rather than feeling like you have to prove or exchange yourself for love or put yourself through something to be loved. If you're not loved by someone else, love yourself. And that's the only thing, is even if you want to love someone else, you still have to have some self-love, right? There's got to be some love there. So, yeah. I love you guys, man. Appreciate you. Mods, thank you so much for being here. I love our community. I want to touch more on topics like this soon. I hope to have some people to interview who can give us a little bit more perspective on some of this stuff. But I'm excited. I'm excited for what our community is going to accomplish. If you know anybody who would benefit from these type of videos, please just send them to our community. Let them know they're welcome, and tell them if they're struggling with mental health. I'd love to be able to. This is what these videos are for, to rehumanize, to not shame you, to not make you feel bad about yourself or like you have to be better today. Just let them know that this community exists, and let them know that these are topics that are going to continue to be talked about no matter what, because they matter. And that's all we can do, man. Put it out there and try. That's it. Love you guys so much, man. See you soon. And I'll be back with you with, what is it, Wednesday? Freaking watch is in the wrong year because it says it's Sunday. It's Wednesday. So we still have Thursday and Friday together, guys. So I'm excited about that. I'll be posting all our updates on the community tab. So that's where you'll see me putting up our new stuff. Love you guys, man.